Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome all of you back to our Metallica discography. So, what are we doing here today, guys? Well, let me hopefully build you in on the context of this little adventure. So, by Christmas Day of this year, of the year 2026, I plan on putting a little bow and sewing everything up about our time with Metallica. In a very specific video for Christmas Day, I like to call every Metallica song ranked from worst to best. So, as you probably might imagine, with just about 121 songs to my knowledge that Metallica have under their belts, well, it means the only way to really do this is to go through every single song and see exactly where it places. A fairly tight and trusted formula. And also, if we were going to go through Metallica's catalogue one more time, we may as well do it together. Insofar as how a ranking of these is actually going to work, you'll understand how we're going to do it towards the end of this. Well, towards the end of this video, so keep watching if or you can skip to the end if you want to know exactly how we do it. Now, speaking of doing it, this is the third song on And Justice for All, and surprisingly, it is kind of funny how they really do start to shift away from thrash, and whilst Damage Incorporated could probably be the last true hardcore thrash song that they probably did at this stage, because I can't really recall if there's really anything on And Justice for All that would be considered thrash, technically. And that's not always a bad thing. It's just, maybe they just wanted to shift away into maybe a little bit of a different direction. And, I have never once had issues with bands trying to do different things. However, does it work in execution? That's what we're trying to take a look at. And tonight's adventure is going to give us a little bit of an interesting insight, because it's one of the least talked about Metallica songs, certainly of their heyday in the 80s, but there's still quite a bit to go over. So let's not waste any more time, shall we? And it's a good thing I still have to wear these, because how else can we see into the eye of the beholder? Limit your imagination, keep you winning most. Do you feel what I feel? Bitter ain't distress. Who decided to express? Do you take what I take? Endurance is the word. Moving back instead of forward seems to me absurd. Doesn't matter what you see or doing what you read, you can do it your own way. If it's done is how I say.
you see or into it what you read. You can do it your own way if it's done just how I say. Independence limited. Freedom of choice is made for you, my friend. Freedom of speech is words that they will bend. Freedom with their exception. Do you know what I know? Your money and your
Whoa.
You silence just to hear yourself. Do you want what I want? Desire not a thing. I hunger after independence, like the freedom string. Doesn't matter what you see or into it what you read. You can do it your own way if it's done just how I say. Independence limited. Freedom of choice is made for you, my friend. Freedom of speech is words that they will bend. Freedom no longer frees you. Doesn't matter what you see or into it what you read. You can do it your own way if it's done just how I say.
You know, I'm not gonna lie. When I say, lyrics like freedom no longer frees you, ironically, that's the sort of thing that straight up, that goes harder than I feel like maybe some people would like to imagine, because we live in a world where people rant, bitch, and rave about freedom of speech and all that. However, what people don't seem to realize is that, guess what? Just because you can does not mean you should. And for reasons a little bit too obvious. However, with that being said, people seem to conveniently choose to ignore this old adage, and that's how it is. So surprisingly enough, actually, coming back to this song, it's certainly, I feel like, quite a bit better than I remembered, definitely. But how much better? I think for now I'm gonna move it a little bit higher up on the list. So I think it's somewhere between okay, so I think it's better than Where the Wild Things Are and Below Dream No More. However, I feel like that might be a little bit more subject to change in the coming weeks, because I think it's almost perfectly in the middle, so to speak. Now, with that being said, let me fill you guys a little bit more about exactly how the point of reference for this is that before we even started doing these videos, I did a tier list on Tier Maker, and essentially I had every single Metallica song that I had access to, and kind of just did a ranking of all of them. Now, the advantage of doing this, it means it gives me a point of reference. So we can move a certain song that's placed here down there based on reevaluations, and we could also put a song that's slightly down there and put it a little bit further up. And what's good about this, it means that there is going to be quite a bit of mixing and matching going on throughout this, and there's going to be quite a lot of surprises along the way, because surprisingly, the range of Metallica songs is just as diverse and as numerous as their numbers. And and also, whilst we're here, I may as well cover another little small point, is that not every bad song on a bad... Because in my opinion, a bad song on a good album is still, in my opinion, better than a good song on a bad album. Because I think it's more about the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. However, stuff like that might also be subject to change, because I rank My Apocalypse absurdly high on the list. But that's more down to maybe a nostalgia factor, perhaps, because, well, for reasons we'll talk about when we get to that, because that's still quite a long ways away. As to Eye of the Beholder, definitely underrated insofar as Metallica songs go, insofar as the grander scope of Metallica, because there are underrated songs that I absolutely think should be praised to the heavens, and there are also some that are good, but maybe they should have been more, if that makes sense. However, that's just sort of how it is. But next time, ladies and gentlemen, there can only be one, and you already know what's coming, so let's just go to it.